Okay, hi guys, as you can see, I am sending you a video from my living room. Please excuse the way I look. I've just done a home workout. I hope you're staying active at home too. Okay, today's lesson. I'm gonna include this video so I can talk you through the activities and the tasks that I want you to do in today's lesson. Hopefully last lesson you would have finished off your last booklet, which is 3.1 and 3.2, and we can carry on moving forward with our 3.3 booklets. Okie dokie. So what you're gonna need for the lesson, you are going to need that booklet, component 3.3. If you can't find it, or you haven't got your actual handout copy, which we gave you before we broke up for the spring break, you can find all of the files on Teams under files, and they're all broken down into the separate components. If you're having struggles, just let me know and I can help you. So you're gonna need that, and you might wanna have a Word document open as well, just to do some typing of some notes, to complete the different questions that there are, so you can submit them to me so I can have a little look. Okie dokie, so they're the things you're gonna need. Right. Okay, activity 1. I want you to spend about 15 minutes doing this activity. Now, it's kind of similar to the homework that I set you about looking at the different your main sport and what you want to, I just kicked my laptop, sorry about that, and what you want to achieve in terms of what you want to get better at in that sport. So if you open that document, let me just have a look. It is called Principles of Training. I've added it as the PDF in the activity section of that table. Give that an open. There should be a nice big table listing days 1 to days 14. So first thing I want you to do is pick a sport. For example, for me, it's netball. Then it says pick a component of fitness that you're going to improve on. Now, you should have already done that in that last homework you gave me. So you should already have a component of fitness that you want to work on. For me, I might want to choose cardiovascular fitness perhaps. Then I'm going to use the table below, and I'm going to show exactly what my training is going to consist of for the next 2 weeks and how I'm going to develop that. So if I was going to work on my cardiovascular fitness, have a little think. How am I going to improve my cardiovascular fitness? What kind of training would I potentially use? And use your past booklet to help you. You can use those as resources, okay? Another thing I want you to think about then at the bottom is, how will you know that you've achieved? How do you know that you've got better at that thing, okay? So again, going back to my example, cardiovascular fitness. Okay, what am I gonna do and how am I gonna improve my cardiovascular? Okay, so I might go for some more runs. I might increase the distance of my run. I might increase the amount of times I run a week. Okay, but then how am I gonna test that? How am I gonna test that my cardiovascular fitness has improved? What can I do to do that, okay? And the last booklet says, analyze the program of another pupil. Obviously, we can't do that because we're not together, unfortunately, okay? So just do the ones that we can do for ourselves. You might want to make a new table again on that Word document. Like I said, you should have opened at the beginning of the lesson. Okie dokie. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to the main activity now for our lesson, okay? So you should have just done the starter activity. Hopefully that's all complete. If you didn't have enough time, you can do that after the rest of the lesson, okay? Let's just try and keep this moving. So we're moving on to page 7 of our 3.3 booklet. And we're going to be looking at our training thresholds. Now, a training threshold is something that an athlete can use to determine how hard they're working, basically. Obviously, if we are working anaerobically, think about how hard we would be working if we're using it as a percentage. So if we're working anaerobically, usually we're working as hard as we possibly can. Things like sprinting, power-based exercises, those kind of activities that we've discussed in the past. Now, if we've got 100%, how hard do we think we're going to be working if we're working anaerobically? Those power, those speed, those really fast movements, probably in a higher percentage, okay? If we're working more aerobically, again, we're using oxygen, okay? So aerobic, oxygen, we're using those oxygen. That's going to be in a lower percentage. We're not working as maximally because we can't keep that up. And if we're using oxygen, the effort's going to be slightly lower. Okay, so if we have a look, we're going to use something called a Kavonen formula. Now, first of all, you need to work out what your maximum heart rate is. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to do that because you know how to do that. If you don't, look back in previous booklets and recap your memory. Write down then what your maximum heart rate is. So we're then going to be looking at our aerobic threshold, and we're trying to work out the percentage of what our maximum heart rate is. Well, using our maximum heart rate, we will be able to then work out what our aerobic threshold zone is. Now, if I told you that 60 to 80% of your maximum heart rate is the zone in which you should be working aerobically in, can you now work that out using what your maximum heart rate is? Can you see if you can work out what 60, 70, and 80% of that would be? And then write that down. That would then be your training target zone aerobically, so you can write that on the next question. Now then, if we're looking at our anaerobic zone then, okay, we already know from what I've just said, if we're working anaerobically, we're probably gonna be working that little bit harder, we're gonna be working a higher percentage of a threshold. So therefore, we're gonna be working at around 80 to 90% of our maximum. So again, can you work out what 80% of your maximum would be and what 90% would be, okay? So what that's really good for is allowing an athlete to work out how hard they should be working, and they can use devices like a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, heart rate monitors that they can wear, that they can track to see how hard they're working and how long they're working in each training zone. For example, if I wanted to improve my power and my speed, there's no point me working at, let's say, 50% of my maximum heart rate, because I'm not working within that threshold to develop that area of fitness. For me, my netball, going back to that example, if I'm working to improve my cardiovascular fitness, what percentage am I going to be working in? Again, yeah, good. I don't know why I'm saying good. I can't even hear your answers, but you know what I mean. I'm going to be working within the 60 to 80% threshold. So I can use that. I know that, okay, that's what my heart rate is for 70% of my maximum. I can use these type of devices to work to see if I'm working within those thresholds. So that kind of just summarizes that a little bit. So make sure you fill out those little questions, have a go working it out. And then we're going to move on to there's a couple of questions now, some exam style questions which I'd like you to complete. I'm just going to speak you through the first one. It's a 3 marker. So as I'm reading it, I want you to think about, okay, what's my command word? What's the question asking me to do? We already know that it's 3 marks, and then you need to be thinking, okay, what kind of keywords are in there? What kind of keywords do I need to use to answer this question? And what kind of style am I going to use to answer this question? So Emma is 20 and is training for a marathon. Using the Kavonen formula simplified, how would you work out Emma's aerobic training zone? So pretty simple. We've already done our own example. Can you try and do that one now on your own? Okay, I just want you to spend the next 2 minutes only. It shouldn't take you very long. There's 2 1-mark answers in your booklet that I'd like you to complete looking at Tom, who is a 16-year-old. So I want you to have a look at those little questions and work out those answers for me, please. Okay, guys, I want you to spend the rest of the lesson now completing the final part of today's session. So if we can scroll down to page 9 now in your booklet. Now you can make your own table to complete this. Like I said, this is a PDF, so you can't edit it anyway. It's absolutely fine as long as you're keeping your notes nice and structured and in a way that you can then send me for me to check when I ask for it. That is perfect. So page 9, we are now going to be looking at different type of training methods. So we've already looked at components of fitness. We've looked at what components of fitness we would like to improve for ourselves in different types of sports, etc., etc. So now we're going to be looking at, okay, what type of training can an athlete do to improve those types of fitness? So in here on these 2, there's page 9 and page 10, and we're looking at a table now. So I want you to do some research. There's no point me talking you through all these. You can go away, you can do some research for yourself. I want you to complete this table. I'll quickly whiz through the first example so you kind of have the idea of what I want you to be putting into it and what kind of detail you should be going into. So, firstly, continuous training, one of the simplest forms of training, okay? Basically what it says on the tin. If it's continuous, you're doing it for a while. That's what continuous training is. So already you should be thinking, okay, continuous training, if it's something that I'm doing for a while, I'm training for a long duration of time, what kind of components of fitness should that then be testing? Okay, so what is it? Well, we know it's a steady training with working within our aerobic threshold, okay, with no rest. It's a continuous thing, okay? It can include things like distance running, cycling, swimming, rowing, any exercise that goes for a prolonged period of time. You then move on to the next box. Who should take part in this type of training? Well, again, it's an endurance-based training. So any athlete who works within their aerobic threshold for a long time, marathon runner, long distance swimmer, long distance cycler, long distance rower, anything that is a duration of a time. You could argue, possibly, things like football, netball. A football match is 90 minutes. That could be a duration of time. So a football player would and should include continuous training into their training program to be able to last the whole duration of a 90-minute football match, for example. But obviously football, can be other types of training because it's not just being able to run for a long time in football, is it? You need to be fast, agile, changing directions, power to jump for a header, which we will look at later on. Okay, what are the advantages of this type of training? Well, it improves our cardiovascular fitness, could be an advantage. You don't really need very much equipment if you're training over a period of time. Just go for a run. Okay, Now we're stuck inside, maybe not so much, but you know what I mean. It can be done on your own. It can be done as part of a group. It's quite an adaptable form of training. So that's what their advantages are. Disadvantages, well, it's not working your aerobic fitness, so there's no point doing it if you want to improve your power or your speed. If it's going for a long period of time, it can become tedious, quite boring maybe. And if you are, we can't really do continuous training in our apartments or in your house at the moment. So it does require you to be able to go maybe outside. I suppose if you've got a bike on a cycle machine, you could do that inside. So maybe this doesn't really count. But for example, if your training requires you to go outside, weather can be a factor. And that can have an effect from session to session. Obviously over here, when we live in Abu Dhabi, it's really hot. So doing continuous training in the middle of the day is never going to work, okay? So that's something that you need to consider, and that could be a disadvantage. Okay, spend the time now for the rest of the lesson. I want you to research and then complete that table on pages 9 and 10. Good luck.